read that from my work bio, so I wasn't ready to know that you guys were gonna get all that information, but I appreciate you being here, and I will say, really appreciate the podcast that we just got to listen to. What I'm gonna engage with and share with you is largely on the same note, and we didn't coordinate this at all. I think it's partly what we're doing here at Ford. We think very similar things, we see the landscape in very similar ways, and perfect. And so I think that's what lends to this. There will be some nuances, and I hope to get into those during the panel. One other aside is that typically I try to have a slide deck presentation because I know that people, both auditory and visual learners, didn't know that we were gonna have the opportunity for a slide deck, so you're just gonna have to hear me talk, and I apologize if you drone off. As a former professor, I do know that my voice and my tone tends to put students to sleep, so hopefully you can stay with me. I'll try to be as engaging as possible. I was asked to give a speech, and so I went ahead and actually drafted one that I think is really relevant to the day and to this notion of 250 years of history. So I'll start. Every generation has to answer the same question. Will we move forward, or will we retreat into what feels familiar? 250 years ago, a group of colonists answered that question by risking everything on an uncertain future. They weren't trying to recreate the past, they were trying to build something better. And 250 years later, it's still on our time to decide whether we'll keep moving forward. Now, nostalgia is powerful. It makes us remember the highlights and forget the hardships. It tells us there was some perfect moment we simply need to get back to. But nostalgia politics aren't solutions. They're largely based in fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of what's new, fear of what's different. If nostalgia had won 250 years ago, America wouldn't exist. The American experiment has always depended on people willing to move forward, even when forward felt uncertain. So here, now, marking 250 years of the American experiment, I want to ask a simple thing of each of us in this room. Commit to moving forward. Not fighting some false sense of what the world was. Because despite everything that still needs fixing, and there's a lot to fix, the evidence tells us something very important. Humanity has made extraordinary progress. Since 1990, the number of children dying every year has been cut by almost half. Extreme poverty has fallen dramatically over the last several decades, lifting billions of people into better living conditions. Global life expectancy has continued to rise as medicine, sanitation, nutrition, public health have improved. None of that means today's problems aren't real. They are. It simply means progress is absolutely possible. History isn't a story of inevitable decline. It's a story of people solving problems. And that's exactly what we're called to do now. Yet for nostalgia politics to work, a villain has to exist. Someone has to be blamed for ruining everything. Someone has to become the reason life isn't what it used to be. And while nostalgia politics most often comes from the Republican Party, Democrats are just as guilty as training candidates that lean heavily into the hero versus villain narrative. In the two-party playbook, every campaign needs a hero. Every campaign needs a monster. Every election becomes another battle between good people and bad people. But I don't think that's how we build a healthier democracy. If we truly want to create a better world, if we truly want to break the two-party system, then we cannot operate by the same means that created the world we're trying to change. We have to stay focused on the broken system, the incentives, the concentration of power, the rules that reward division. We cannot afford to get distracted by the daily outrage cycle or someone else's antics, because we're building something different. We, I believe, are creating a movement, not a mob. And there is a profound difference. Mobs have executed women, mobs have executed black men, mobs have executed gay men, turned neighbor against neighbor. Throughout history, mobs don't follow rules. They don't want facts. They don't want reason. They want a target, a scapegoat, someone to blame. Mobs lead with anger and violence. Movements lead with purpose and solutions. Mobs squash dissent. Movements invite curiosity. Mobs follow people. Movements follow principles. If the American experiment is going to survive another 250 years, curiosity has to win the day. We need more problem solvers, not problem makers. I don't know what brought each of you to the Ford Party, or even here today. Maybe you're not entirely sure yourself. But whatever that why is, it cannot stop at a feeling. It must transform into action. Attending a virtual meeting will not disrupt the two-party system. Sharing a social media post will not disrupt the two-party system. Showing up will. Talking to neighbors will. Knocking on doors will. And having a third table or tent at the polls on primary day will. We, heck, even I, absolutely, please, need more people willing to show up. We need people willing to communicate our vision of free people, thriving communities, and vibrant democracy. Because people are hungry for it. I've seen it firsthand. Of the people who signed the nomination papers to get me on the ballot, 45% are Democrats, 37% are Republicans, 17% aren't affiliated with either party. Sure, signatures are not votes. I understand that. I'm not pretending they are. But in an R plus 14 district, we've collected signatures that reflect the district's political makeup at rates neither major party candidate could ever realistically replicate. That tells me something. People are listening, people are open, people are looking for another way. What's needed now isn't a different message. It's more reach, more mass, more boots on the ground, more conversations, more door knocking, more people hearing a vision that's about building, not blaming. So that's my ask. Don't let today be your finish line. Let it be your starting line. Leave here committed to building a movement rooted in curiosity instead of certainty, solutions instead of slogans, invitation instead of outrage, because America has never been at its best when we look backward. America has always been at its best when ordinary people had the courage to build something that never existed before. That's the experiment. That's the work that needs to get done. Thanks so much.